Before Jordan flew, before Kobe obsessed, and long before LeBron carved his legend, there was Wilt, a man who didn't just break records. He left the game scrambling to rewrite the rulebook. Let's start with this. There have been 706 games in NBA history where a player dropped 50 points. Wilt Chamberlain owns 118 of them. That's 1 out of every 6. 1 in 6. Let that sink in. In a league filled with Hall of Famers, legends, icons, Wilt took 1/6 of the most explosive scoring nights and made them his. And if you think that's absurd, it gets crazier. Because in the 60-point club, Wilt's not just a member, he built the house. Of the 93 games in NBA history where a player hit 60, Wilt had 32. That's over a third. Every 3 times a player scored 60 in NBA history, one was him. Jordan, Kobe, Harden, they all got hot, but Wilt lived there. He didn't get hot, he was the fire. Still not enough. Let's go higher, 70. Only 15 times in NBA history has a player scored 70 or more. Wilt did it 6 times. 6. Booker, Dame, Elgin Baylor, David Thompson, once each. Kobe twice. Wilt, 6. The rest of the league combined couldn't match his total. He was a walking supernova, and yet, all of this still lives in the shadow of one game. March 2nd, 1962, Hershey, Pennsylvania. A gym that barely held 4,000 fans. No cameras, no ESPN, just legends being born in silence. Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points in a single game. 36 made field goals, 28 made free throws, 25 rebounds, 2 assists, 0 mercy, 100 points. No one has come close since. No one will. And what's even more insane, that game wasn't televised. All we have is a box score and one black and white photo, that paper with the scribbled 100. It's not just a stat, it's a monument. Wilt didn't just score. He didn't just dominate. He made numbers feel small. 50 wasn't special. 60 didn't turn heads. 70, routine, and 100? That was the moment basketball met mythology. People always ask, yeah, but how many rings? And sure, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Russell, the rivalry, and why Wilt's legacy is more complicated than his numbers. But make no mistake, what Wilt did on the court was not just greatness. It was something the game had never seen before, and never will again. He didn't just set records, he made the impossible feel inevitable. And if you think those numbers are crazy, just wait till you see what the NBA did to stop him. Wilt made the league change the rules. Because domination like that, it couldn't go unchecked. This is Hoop Lockdown, and this is just the beginning. Before he was the man who dropped 100 points, he was just Wilton, born in Philadelphia, 1936, 6th of 9 kids. And from the jump, he was different. By the time he was 10, he wasn't just taller than the other kids, he was taller than most adults. He didn't grow up playing basketball in sneakers and shooting on driveway hoops. He was out there sprinting, jumping, flying. Track and field was his first love, and it wasn't some backup sport. Wilt was elite. He ran the 100-yard dash in 10.9 seconds. Let that sink in. 7 feet tall, running with sprinter speed. He triple jumped over 50 feet, competed in the high jump, the long jump, and middle distance races. Wilt wasn't just big, he was an athlete. People always talk about LeBron's athleticism, Giannis's freakish frame. Wilt was that blueprint before anyone had the language to describe it. But funny enough, he didn't even like basketball at first. He thought it was soft. Too slow, too limited, too basic. Wilt loved the thrill of competition, the rawness of racing, the freedom of flight. Basketball, it felt like a cage. But the moment he realized what his size and skill could do on a court, the switch flipped. He started to take it seriously, and the game would never be the same. Because this wasn't just some tall kid learning how to hoop. This was a once-in-history body gifted with track star agility, stepping into a sport that had no answer for him, and the world had no idea what was coming. Once Wilt picked up a basketball, it didn't take long for the scoreboard to panic. He attended Overbrook High School in Philadelphia. And from day one, he was a cheat code. He wasn't just scoring, he was erasing what people thought was possible at the high school level. 70-point games became a regular thing. And yes, once he dropped 90 as a teenager. At that point, he wasn't just a high school star, he was a national sensation. Every college in America wanted him. Every coach knew his name, but Wilt chose Kansas. And in his first college game, he showed up and broke the system. 52 points, 31 rebounds, 1 debut, 1 statement, and then The rulebook started changing, literally. Wilt was so dominant, the NCAA had to rewrite how the game was played. They widened the free throw lane, they banned inbound passes over the backboard, because Wilt would just alley-oop and dunk them. They changed the free throw rule so a player's feet had to stay behind the line. Why? Because Wilt was dunking free throws, but no matter what the rules said, there was no way to stop him, unless you just held the ball. That's exactly what teams started doing. There was no shot clock back then, so opponents would literally stall entire possessions just to keep the ball out of Wilt's hands. Imagine being so good that teams would rather not play at all than play against you. That was Wilt at Kansas, and still, he almost took them to the top. NCAA Finals, Kansas versus North Carolina, triple overtime. They triple teamed him from the opening tip, and in the final seconds, Carolina iced it with free throws. Wilt put up 23 points and 14 rebounds and still lost. He was named Most Outstanding Player of the tournament, but to him, it was the most painful loss of his life. The Warriors improved by 17 wins overnight, and while the league scrambled to figure out what they were even looking at, Boston already had their answer: Bill Russell. Where Wilt was the unstoppable force, Russell was the immovable object, and just like that, the greatest individual rivalry in NBA history was born. Wilt versus Russell, size versus system, power versus principle, stats versus rings. It would define the decade and follow Wilt for the rest of his life. By 1961, Wilt had already broken records. Now he was about to break reality. The Warriors brought in a new coach, Frank McGuire, same guy who beat Wilt in the 1957 NCAA Finals. But this time, he wasn't game planning to stop Wilt. He was unleashing him. No minute limits, no restrictions, just pure dominance. Wilt didn't just play every game that season, he played every minute. 48 minutes per game in a 48-minute league. Actually, he averaged 48.5. Because of overtime, Wilt Chamberlain played more minutes than time itself. And what he did with those minutes? Unreal. 50.4. That's not a typo, that's not a video game. Wilt averaged 50.4 points per game, along with 25.7 rebounds. And that wasn't a hot streak, that was the whole season. He dropped 78 on the Lakers in a triple overtime game. He had multiple 60-point nights in February like it was nothing. Wilt didn't catch fire, he lived in it. But then came March 2nd, Hershey, Pennsylvania. A regular season game in an old hockey arena, barely half full. No TV cameras, no big headlines, just Wilt and the Knicks. And then it started. First quarter, 23 points. Second quarter, 18 more. Third quarter, 28. By the time the fourth quarter began, the whispers turned to roars. Something legendary was happening. The Knicks knew it too. They started fouling everyone except Wilt, just to keep the ball away from him. So what did the Warriors do? They fouled back. On purpose. They stopped the clock. Bought Wilt more time. The crowd started chanting. His teammates fed him the ball. This wasn't just a game anymore. It was history in motion. With under a minute left, Wilt had 98. He broke free, caught a lob, and dropped it in. Nu ravde. Bill Russell had the rings, and together, they had the greatest rivalry the NBA has ever seen. They met 142 times. They were friends off the court, fierce, brutal opposites on it. Wilt was the unstoppable force, 50-point games, rebounding records, 100 in a night. Russell was the immovable object, the anchor of a dynasty, the soul of the Celtics. Wilt filled up the box score. Russell filled up the trophy case. They faced off in 8 playoff series. Wilt won 1. Russell won 7. It didn't matter if Wilt scored 30, 40, or 50. Russell's teams won, because where Wilt chased dominance, Russell chased victory. Then came 1969, the finals, Lakers versus Celtics. Wilt versus Russell, one last time. It was Game 7. Wilt was battling a knee injury. He sat on the bench during crunch time, asked to go back in. Coach said no. He benched Wilt Chamberlain. In Game 7 of the finals, the Lakers lost, and that coach fired. But the damage was done. Russell, emotional, exhausted, triumphant in his final game, made a comment after. He said, "Any injury short of a broken back or a broken leg isn't enough. Wilt never forgot that. He took it personal, felt betrayed, felt disrespected. They didn't speak for 20 years, not a word. Two men who built the NBA with their battles, torn apart by a final blow that wasn't even thrown on the court. Wilt had the numbers, Russell had the rings, and the space between them, that's where greatness lived. For years, Wilt Chamberlain was the guy who could do everything, except win it all. He had the points, he had the boards, he had the dominance, but the rings, they always went to Russell. Then came 1967, the Philadelphia 76ers, a different Wilt. 19 points, 23 rebounds per game in the finals. But the numbers didn't tell the whole story. It was the presence, the leadership, the way the entire team leaned on him. The Lakers won the title, and Wilt was named Finals MVP. No stat padding, no controversy, just wins. After years of being told he couldn't win the big one, he won two, on two different teams, in two completely different ways, and both times, he had to change. Not his body, not his game, but his mindset. Wilt proved he could dominate, but more importantly, he proved he could evolve. Wilt Chamberlain never aged like a normal star. He didn't fall off a cliff. He just shifted. The dunks didn't disappear. The rebounds didn't vanish. But the game around him changed, and so did he. In his final seasons, Wilt wasn't the offensive force that once terrified the league. He wasn't averaging 50 anymore, sometimes not even 15, but that wasn't about skill, it was about role. He played defense, he facilitated, he picked his spots, and the crazy thing, he still led the league in field goal percentage, still pulled down 20 boards a night, still anchored the paint, but behind the scenes, the machine was cracking. Wilt clashed with coaches. Often. He didn't like being told what to do, didn't like being boxed in. He wanted control, he wanted respect, and most of all, he wanted to be paid what he was worth. That led to friction, fights with management, tense negotiations, unspoken threats to walk away. By 1973, the writing was on the wall. Wilt was still effective, still respected, but he wasn't at peace with the way the league saw him. He played out his final NBA season, once still dominant in flashes, still a physical marvel. Then came the offer. The San Diego Conquistadors of the ABA wanted Wilt to be a player coach. Big money, new start, one more run, but the NBA said no. The Lakers took him to court, and the court sided with the league. Wilt was blocked from playing, and just like that, it was over. No farewell tour, no last dance, just silence. The most dominant force the league had ever seen, gone. And yet his shadow still stretched across the sport, because even in decline, Wilt was doing things no one else could. Even in silence, his presence was loud. He left the game the same way he entered it, on his own terms. Wilt Chamberlain was unstoppable. That part was never in question. He could drop 50 without blinking, grab 30 boards in his sleep, play 48 minutes a night like it was nothing. But with Wilt, it was never just about what he could do. It was about why he chose to do it. Because behind every stat, every highlight, every record, there was something deeper. Wilt wanted to win, no doubt, but he also wanted to be seen winning. He wanted the points, the headlines, the applause. There were nights where he could have dunked every possession and didn't. He wanted to show touch, finger rolls, fadeaways. He didn't just want to dominate. He wanted to look graceful doing it. That was Wilt, an entertainer in a warrior's body, and that mindset, it came with a cost. He clashed with teammates, ignored coaches, skipped practices, showed up late to games. While Russell was drilling defensive rotations and sacrificing shots, Wilt was counting rebounds and negotiating contracts. He needed a certain kind of coach to reach his ceiling. Someone strong enough to challenge him, someone like Alex Hannum. Hannum was one of the few who could stand toe-to-toe with Wilt, tell him the truth, push him into being more than a stat machine. And when Wilt finally bought in, he won. But those moments were rare, because more often than not, Wilt wanted to win his way, with control, with freedom, with flair. He wanted to be the best, but he also wanted you to know it. He chased perfection, not just victory. And that chase, the ego, the showmanship, the endless hunger to be recognized, it made him a legend, but it also kept him from becoming something even greater, because Wilt wasn't just built different, he thought different. Some records are meant to be broken. Wilt Chamberlain's? They're not. He holds the record for most rebounds in a single game, 55. And no, that's not a typo, 55. In one game, he owns the most points per game in a season, 50.4. Not one night, not 1 week, an entire season. He grabbed the most rebounds in a season, the most in a career, played more minutes per game than there are minutes in a game. And if blocks had been officially tracked, Wilt would probably be leading that too, but his legacy isn't just numbers. It's how those numbers changed the game. The NBA had to shift the court, literally, to deal with Wilt. They widened the lane, introduced offensive goaltending, eventually brought in the shot clock. Because Wilt broke the system, the league wasn't built for someone like him, so they had to rebuild it, and still, he dominated. His rivalry with Bill Russell, the greatest one-on-one clash in basketball history. It wasn't just talent versus talent, it was philosophy versus philosophy. And while Russell won more, Wilt made the league watchable. He filled arenas, he drew headlines, he made basketball big, and off the court, he changed everything. Wilt was one of the first players to fight for his value. He challenged ownership, he negotiated his own terms, he made noise. Not just on the scoreboard, but in the boardroom. Free agency, player empowerment, contract leverage, all of that. This Wilt helped lay the foundation. He wasn't just a player, he was the blueprint. Most dominant stat sheet in league history, most misunderstood star in league history, most fascinating figure in league history, because Wilt wasn't trying to be perfect, he was trying to be Wilt, and for one man, one era, and one game on a quiet night in Hershey, Pennsylvania. That was more than enough. Wilt's career is defined by a paradox. The most individually dominant player in NBA history who only scratched the surface of his championship potential. He was an entertainer at heart, often conflicted between being the greatest athlete and the greatest teammate. The video concludes that while Russell was the winner, Wilt was the phenomenon, and both were essential for the NBA's growth.